is the same as him. They're both from the 1920s.
Well played, my friend. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Both of them from the 1920s.
Hello and welcome to the Rose and Rockstar from the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast and the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a CMO. It's Saturday the 12th of April, and in a moment I will join my chum, Chief Troublemaker at 7th Bear, Robert Rose, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, where he recommends one of his fabulous cocktails and I pick his brains on a marketing topic that is top of mind for me. This week, over an absolute classic cocktail, we start with a bit of a rant on why B2B marketing is constantly being reinvented, with new titles being created and all of that, and then with some good advice from the marketing classic. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word.
We'll be right back.
After this word. Raise the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. Nice to see you. How are you?
I am doing well. Spring has sprung here in Southern California. It is a bright, sunny day. It is hot. I'm actually not mad about it. I'm usually want it to be a little more London-like with gray and cooler weather, but I gotta say, it's kind of nice to walk out in shorts and flip-flops and sort of be outside. So it's all is well in my world. How about you?
Yeah, same. Shockingly, actually, because we've almost got summer weather, because it was 19 degrees today, which is 66, because I quickly looked it up in your Fahrenheit, which for us is pretty much,
that's
June
summertime.
weather.
That's swim trunks weather. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, so it's been really nice here as well. Yeah, so and the sun is out. It's really quite nice. Very nice here at the moment.
Very nice.
Yes. Have you got a suitable cocktail for this good weather?
We do have a lovely cocktail for this evening, for the weekend. So we are going to have one of my favorite cocktails of all time. It is not easy to find this at, when you're making it at a bar, but of course this bar, we make it special. And it's simply called a sidecar. And a sidecar is one of our favorite cocktails. It is also a favorite cocktail of someone that both you and I know, Dr. Tim Walters.
Yes.
Who is, that's one of his favorite cocktails as well. He often posts it on social media and tells me how he tells me how he's making it perfectly, and I tell him how he's botching it completely. But and in any event, it's from the 1920s. The cocktail here,
which is the same as him. They're both from the 1920s.
Well played, my friend. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Both of them from the 1920s.
Sorry,
boy,
Tim.
I don't know if he's a listener or not, but that's good stuff.
No, I don't think so.
In any event, you have 2 parts cognac, your favorite cognac, of course. This is one exception I make to adding sugar to drinks. I add a little triple sec to that, like a 1/4 part triple sec, a little lemon juice, and basically, a handful of ice to put into the glass or a shaker. Shake it up. You want to put this into all chilled and everything into a martini glass or a coupe glass if that's your preference. And it is just a lovely, lovely drink. You can add. If you want to add just a little bit of specialty to the very end, you can add just a dash of bitters to the glass. Actually, when you've done shaking it, and it's fantastic.
Splendid.
And that's the classic sidecar.
Well, I got to ask now: how does the good Dr. Tim Walters get it wrong?
I'm not sure how he gets it wrong. I mean, I'm sure being Tim, he overcomplicates it quite a bit. So,
yeah, I don't doubt it. He also likes a Vesper, doesn't he? If I remember rightly, too.
He does love a good Vesper. Yes, he does love a good Vesper. Which is also as simple as it gets, right? So
yeah, we'll have to have one on the show in a few weeks. Anyway, my friend, it's not fair on the listeners. I hope that some of the listeners know who Tim Walters is, because he's a wonderful chap and incredibly bright, probably the biggest brain of many people that I know.
Oh, but yeah, huge brain. Yep, big brain.
But we've only got the brains that are in this bar this evening, and so I've got a question for you, mate. I want to know, why is it that we keep trying to reinvent B2B marketing? I keep seeing these LinkedIn posts. Lately, I've seen a whole slew of brand versus marketing. We're talking about go-to-market a lot more. There's new titles like Chief Growth Officer, and there's the thing about being the Chief Market Officer, not the Chief Marketing Officer. Why are we doing this, my friend?
I don't know. I don't know why we're doing it. I mean, it is a complete and utter distraction. But I will tell you, I think it's fundamentally one of the reasons why we see B2B marketing being as broken in many ways as it is because there seems to be a lack of either understanding or appreciation for the 50 years of B2B marketing. Of course, for you students out there, those that are under the age of, let's say, 35, we used to call this industrial marketing back in the day, right? So in the 80s and 90s, and even arguably into the early 2000s, as digital was just beginning, we called it industrial marketing because it was really a very new practice for most businesses, right? Manufacturers and chemical companies and technology companies, even to some extent, hardware, all those sorts of things, where the way sales happened were basically, buyers would call their rep, whoever that was, the thing that they used to get, and basically talk to them about what the market looked like. What's the new thing? What should I be keeping up with? And then they read journals that were printed and and there were, brochures and big guides and stuff that got sent to people. And it was a very small part of, a sales driven mentality. And that really changed as digital and CRM and everything got going in the early 2000s. But it was all based on classic marketing techniques, the 4 Ps. It was based on the fact that, the idea of brand versus performance marketing. There was all sorts of talk about how marketing needed to understand the, building a marketing intelligence system, which of course was researching our total addressable market and our market space and the, PESTLE analysis and all the things that are classic parts of the marketing strategy were all part of B2B marketing as it grew. And somewhere in the last 10 years, we've just lost an appreciation for that classic thinking. And there's a feeling that we have to reinvent it. I was literally having a discussion with a young CEO of a tech company, growing tech company. And they said, we're we're gonna fire our entire marketing team. Like, we're gonna get rid of our entire marketing team, and we're gonna replace it with a growth team, because growth is the new thing. And I said, okay, well, explain to me the activities that this growth team are going to be doing. And he proceeded to basically tell me everything that a marketing team should be doing.
Yeah.
I said, so you're going to be replacing your marketing team with a marketing team. And so for some reason, we're feeling the need right now to sort of try and reinvent this. The debates that we're seeing now on, on social media that say, ooh, should we be focused on brand marketing, or should we be focused on performance marketing? Because what's the real focus that we should be having as B2B organizations? And the answer is 1995 wants its argument back, because we've settled this 30 years ago. And the answer is a balance. Of course, a balance. You need to balance it out depending on what your business goals are. So all of this distraction around trying to reinvent. I even saw one post that's trying to reinvent the concept of content marketing, right? With the idea of like, going back to the ideas of, you'll remember this from 2007 and 2006. We used to call it article marketing, right? Where you would create articles, and the articles they would create traffic to your website, and then they would create leads. And that was how the old inbound idea became fashionable. And so we don't need to reinvent this stuff. It's already there. The best practices are already there. We just need to use them in better ways.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the worst thing I'm seeing at the moment is branding versus marketing, not brand versus performance or brand versus another discipline within marketing, but this perception that somehow building a brand is not marketing. And it's like, those conversations absolutely baffle me. And it's like, you don't just see one either. You see half a dozen of them. And you think, well, the world's going mad. I mean, one person's fine, but the world going mad.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Now, this gets a little bit to, there was a topic that went around pre-pandemic. It was right around the 2018 and 2019 timeframe, where there was a really hot topic for about 20 minutes that was, is the CMO job just too big, right?
Yeah.
And it was, in large part, it was because what had happened over the course of 2010 to 2019, let's just use that decade, right?
Yeah.
Was that marketing's remit got a lot bigger. It did, right? So it used to be, again, back in the day, and let's talk about B2B marketing for a second, it was really the sales front end of the house process, right? It was basically, once you got to sales enablement and the contract signed, marketing sort of left the building, right? And it was all up to either client management, project management, implementation teams, whatever your business sort of focused on, to sort the customer experience out. And along as digital started to get in, and we started talking about subscription-based models more and more, we started talking about upsell, cross-sell, and landing and expanding and all those kinds of things. Well, marketing became involved a lot more for the entirety of that customer experience, back around to, reacquisition and such. And as such, that discussion of, is the CMO's job too big these days? And you started to seeing a bifurcation of like, you had big companies like SAP and Adobe. And Adobe, by the way, has just redone this again, where they separated out the job of sort of head of performance marketing and head of branding, right? So there's a CMO for brand and a CMO for performance-oriented marketing and sales enablement. And I don't hate that, but it's also, to me, just exactly to your point, it is just part of the marketing process. And I buy the argument that in some cases, it's too big a job for perhaps one person. And I should say it maybe the other way, it's a big enough job that two people should take ownership of each part of it, but that work closely together, because they are all after all just sorting out a marketing problem. But no, if you're a startup, you don't need a chief brand officer and a chief revenue officer and a chief marketing officer, and you don't need to bifurcate marketing into 14 different ways.
Yeah, well, I push back a little bit on that, two CMO idea, because I think that eventually everybody reports into somebody, right? So, it's a triangle shape.
Right. Well, that's a good point, is how many layers do you need, right?
Yeah. And the thing for that, the problem I have with, and also, I've run big marketing teams, and you have to split the organization out into disciplines. You do end up with a demand team. You do end up with a customer care team, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the thing is that there should be a thread running throughout them. And at that very top level, having somebody focusing on brand and somebody focusing on performance, they're codependent on each other, aren't they? And you'd want to have that, sure, those two people may get on fine and work together really well. But as that sort of goes down the organization, you could imagine that split occurring, couldn't you? Because they're not in the same team. They won't have the same goals or any of that kind of good stuff.
Well, that's a fair point. And in many ways, what it feeds is this idea of weirdly competing with ourselves, which is in many cases because of the segmentation we've seen in marketing teams. This is something that I see a lot in clients where organically over the last 10 years, what has happened in many organizations is, and this is largely, by the way, the fault of technology, which is because we've aligned our teams around the technologies, we have inherently aligned our teams around segments of the customer's journey, right? So we have a brand team, and then we have a demand gen team, and then we have a sales enablement team, and then we have a sales team, and then we have a customer experience team, and then we have a customer service team, and then back around again, we have, and all of those things, right? And each one of those ends up siloing from the rest of marketing. And what you end up with in many cases is, for example, the brand team, which creates its own newsroom and creates its own content strategy and creates its own elements of creating better brand experiences, which don't collaborate or coincide or even, really comport with what the demand team is doing. And so in some instances, I've even seen where brands disagree with themselves on, two different blog posts, right? I ran into this in a consulting client, big global consulting firm that I worked with, where the head of marketing on demand gen side disagreed fundamentally, without even really knowing that they disagreed fundamentally, with the definition of cloud computing and the value of cloud computing with the brand people, right? And it's like, you're now competing for the same audience and the same eyeballs and even the same value proposition. It's just really odd.
Yeah. Well, I did back when I was living in the US, I did a consulting gig with the large tech agency that I was working with, and we worked with a large tech organization in New York. And the CMO there was, he knew something was not quite right about his marketing team, and he asked us to come in and do a bit of an audit. And a lot of that was exactly what you're talking about there, was not necessarily the messaging was competing with each other, but the goals were competing with each other. And so you had like one team that were, they wanted to kill parts of the website because that was what they were comped on. And another team where a huge amount of revenue came from a very few clients, and therefore the traffic wasn't very big on that part of the website, but it performed really well. So it was, dealing with this sort of group of people, groups of teams that were all, there's a lot of friction in there. And I think that's what can happen, can't it, with these big marketing teams?
100%. I mean, that's, the duplication and, and some of this has, there's a technology story here as well, for sure. But I think in many ways, the duplicative, whether it's content creation, whether it's activities and measurement, I mean, how many times have we seen everybody has their own measurement dashboard, right? And it's where, we define a lead this way. Well, they define a lead that way. We have what we call MQLs. It's like, well, that we don't agree with that because, we have, MOQLs, right? It's like, So it's like you end up sort of building the strategy gets built on the KPIs that the business expects from the silo rather than the overall marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And everybody's wondering why, when they look at the analytics deck, why there's like 14 asterisks at the bottom of every chart that say, well, except for this thing, right? Except for that thing, right? Well, we haven't included that because that's an anomaly and we don't like that, right?
Yeah. And I think there's a story that you've told a couple of times on the podcast where you were working with a client and they started doing all the marketing things. And if all of the metrics in all the marketing things had added up, they would have, the story you told was they were performant and successful. But if you'd have added up all their individual things, they'd have been 1,000% more successful. I don't know if you remember that.
That's exactly
story.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because everybody takes the attribution for themselves. How much money were you responsible for? Oh, we were responsible for all of it, right?
Well, that leads us on to a conversation that I've been having recently, which is marketing contribution rather than attribution, but I think we'll cover that another day.
There you go.
And in the meantime, where would people find these great stories that you've got about clients that have added everything up together?
They'll find it on our little hovel on the website called seventhbear.com.
Splendid. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you, mate?
They'll find me on LinkedIn primarily. Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to swim through the emo noise that is LinkedIn these days.
I noticed you haven't done a Gen AI created doll of yourself like everybody else has.
I have. That is correct. Although I liked yours very much. You look like an Oompa Loompa coming out of that box, right?
That was the idea. Crumpled and broken.
I like it. I like it. It took away your entire torso, which was really, you're just like chest and legs. It's kind of interesting.
Well, for anybody, I do have a chest and legs, so just to let people know.
Yeah, I know you do. I've seen you in person, yeah.
All right, mate. And most importantly to me, will I see you in the bar next week?
You will indeed.
I look forward. Thank you, Robert. I certainly agree. With all these distractions, we should stick to the marketing fundamentals and retain those skills and call them marketing. So that's a wrap on our visit to the Rose and Rockstar. Thank you for joining us and for listening. You can find links to Robert and me in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com. Why not sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Beat? There's a link on the website, or stick The Beat by Rockstar CMO into your Googles and you'll find it. Or connect or follow us on LinkedIn. Again, just search for Rockstar CMO. Coming up this week on Rockstar CMO FM, Jeff is in the studio and we continue to discuss the CMO's first 90 days. And just remember, folks, as Dewey Finn said in the film The School of Rock, you can't just say it, man. You got to feel it in your blood and guts if you want to rock.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.